All right. Well, as promised, my colleague Unathi Batyashe is at the Nerve Center, the IEC's Results Operations Center in Midrand. Let's take you live there. So, Unathi, it's just under an hour to go before those polling stations across the country close for special votes. I know the IEC did indicate that they will not be putting up those numbers of the votes that have been cast during this special vote time until, of course, the rest of the nation has gone to vote tomorrow.
Absolutely, Alicia, and once again, a very good afternoon coming to you live from the IEC's Results Operations Center, rather the ROC as it's otherwise known. Of course, this is where everything is going to be happening, particularly tomorrow. As you've said, Alicia, there, the IEC is expected then to host the briefing, the media briefing at around 6 o'clock. That's an hour after the voting stations for the special votes would have then closed. And of course, after that, we'll get a sense in terms of how those special votes have gone. Of course, 2 days of special votes, voting stations having opened from 9 a.m. until 5 p.m. And of course, tomorrow it will be slightly different in that the voting stations will open from 7 a.m. in the morning until 9 p.m. in the evening. And that's when we'll start seeing then those, leaderboards behind us here in studio start to light up and, of course, see some activities. But we are in conversation with various political parties as well as, of course, political analysts. And in studio joining me now is Dr. Fikile Vilakazi. Dr. Vilakazi, thank you so much for your time. Of course, a hype of activity happening right here in the center. It was quiet over the past couple of days, but we are really starting to see political party representatives coming in. So I would imagine a lot at stake, for this particular election. But I want to talk a little bit about what we've seen over the past 2 days in as far as the special votes are concerned. It does seem that there is a little bit of concern, particularly from voters who are talking about, will I be able to vote because of Section 24 of the Electoral Act, of course, that has now been enforced for this particular election. I mean, how much of a concern is that?
Good afternoon to you, Unathi, and to viewers at home. That is a very serious concern. Actually, it's something that I've been also checking in the last 2 days, at least from yesterday up to today. What we are noticing is that people who have registered to vote, had a provision to apply through Section 24A to say, if I happen to shift from where I am to another place for whatever reason, I should be able to vote in another district. Of course, the challenge then comes in that citizens needed to have notified the IEC by the 17th of May. So what used to happen in the past, Unathi, South Africans would remember that we had a provision like that, but what it would happen is that if you registered in the Eastern Cape and you happen to move into Gauteng during the voting period, you could still vote. You may not necessarily have access to all the ballots. But the difference in this one is that if you did not notify IEC by the 17th, then you've lost your right to franchise. And I think it is problematic in that sense because it is likely to then exclude a number of voters who had demonstrated commitment, willingness and zeal to actually make a decisive choice through their vote in this particular election, which is a very pivotal election for South Africa. And it can lean towards marginalization and exclusivity of some kind, which we do not want to see, particularly because our country seems to be committed, at least in law, to equality, and to the right to franchise. And I think that is what is troubling. Yeah. And I'm wondering, as I was coming into the studio, Unathi, whether the IEC still has time to sort of lift the date provision at least for those who are migrating. Because we must remember, South Africans migrate for different reasons. Yeah. It is sickness, it is death of a loved one. You need to go bury your loved one. We just saw an accident in Limpopo. A fatal accident where there were no survivors in that accident. So someone has to go home, right? And they may have registered and they may not be able to vote tomorrow. And for me, it's those kinds of things to say, is it possible that the IEC could look at that, at least just lift the date provision? And then we can see a number of voters coming in. Because you would agree with me, Unathi, and South Africans, that this is the most important, decisive election for South Africa, and I think we need all the votes that we can get.
Yeah, I'm wondering then if the IEC would take this opportunity then to probably address some of these, questions that are coming up, because we do understand, of course, where the rigidity of this process comes from, in the sense that, in the past we saw that they were trying to close those loopholes that were there in as far as, people applying twice to vote, etc. But hopefully, when it is 6 p.m. and the IEC takes a look at, in terms of the issues that have been raised, then they will then broach that particular matter. But, we'll continue then to just look at the 2 days in a sense. But we, of course, want to also take a look at what is also happening in other provinces with our reporters. We've been touching base with them.